All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We're ready to go deep on another topic.
Then dive right in.
This time it's SQL and MySQL.
Sounds good to me.
We've got a stack of SQL for beginners material here.
All the basics?
Yeah, but we're going to try and make it interesting, right?
Absolutely. We'll go beyond the basics.
You know, our listener wants to understand all this stuff quickly and thoroughly, but
Without getting bogged down.
right, exactly. So no long lectures, just, the good stuff.
Straight to the point. Practical knowledge.
Exactly. So first things first, what is SQL anyway? I mean, it stands for Structured Query Language.
Yeah, but what does that actually mean?
Right. What's it all about?
Okay, so imagine you're dealing with a huge company, like Amazon, right? Millions of customers, billions of transactions.
Mountains of data.
Yeah, mountains of data. All that information gets stored in these massive databases.
And SQL is how you talk to those databases.
Exactly. It's the language you use to ask questions, get specific information, even make changes.
So instead of manually searching through all that data,
Which would take forever.
you can just use SQL to pinpoint exactly what you need.
Precisely. It's incredibly efficient, saves a ton of time.
I like the sound of that. Our sources mention this marketing VP, Janet.
Right, Jai.
She needs to analyze all sorts of customer data for her campaigns.
SQL would be a game changer for her.
So she could use it to, find all customers in a specific region.
Yep. See their purchase history, identify buying trends, all that.
That's pretty powerful. Now, our sources also mention these five, what are they called, sub-languages within SQL.
Right. DQL, DDL, DML, TCL, and DCL.
Sounds a bit intimidating.
It's not as bad as it sounds.
We'll break it down for us.
Okay, so each one handles a specific part of how you interact with the database. Think of them like specialized tools for different tasks.
Gotcha. Okay.
So first up, DQL, Data Query Language. This one's all about getting information out of the database.
Like asking a question and getting a specific answer back.
Exactly. So if Janet wanted to see, say, all the customers who bought a certain product last month,
She would use DQL.
yep, it's all about asking the right questions to get the exact data you need.
Okay, makes sense. Now, what about DML, data manipulation language?
Now one's about making changes to the data itself, adding new information, updating existing records, deleting stuff that's no longer relevant.
So kind of like being the editor of the database.
Exactly. You get to shape the database, make sure it's accurate and up to date.
Okay, and then there's DCL, data control language.
That's all about security. Who has access to the database, what they're allowed to do.
Very important, especially with all that sensitive customer information.
Absolutely. You don't want just anyone messing with that.
And TCL, that's transaction control language, right?
That's the one.
What does that do?
TCL makes sure your changes to the database happen in a safe and organized way. It's like a safety net that prevents any half-finished changes from causing problems.
So it makes sure everything stays consistent and reliable. That's crucial when you're dealing with important data.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've got SQL with its 5 sublanguages, all working together to manage this data. But what about MySQL? We see that name pop up a lot in our sources.
Yeah, so mySQL is a specific system, a platform that uses SQL. Think of it like the environment where you apply your SQL skills.
Okay, so if SQL is the language,
MySQL is the place where you speak it.
makes sense.
MySQL is also super versatile, runs on everything from personal computers to those huge servers.
And it's known for being reliable, scalable, and fast, right?
That's what makes it so popular.
Yeah.
Whether you're a small business or a giant corporation, MySQL can handle it.
So it's got the power and flexibility to grow with you.
Exactly.
All right, so we've got the basics down. We know what SQL is, we've met MySQL, and we've got a handle on those 5 sublanguages.
But how does it all actually work?
Yeah, let's see some of this in action.
Let's get practical.
Remember Janet, our marketing VP who needs all that customer data.
Oh yeah, Janet. She's got a lot of work to do.
Let's use her to see how this SQL stuff can solve real problems.
Sounds good to me. Let's say Janet needs to pull up a list of all her customers in a specific city. How would she do that with SQL?
That sounds like a job for DQL, right? Data query language.
You got it. Specifically, she would use the select statement. Think of it like asking the database a question. Hey, database, show me everyone who lives in, let's say, Berlin.
Okay, so how would that look in actual SQL code?
Assuming her customer data is in a table called customers, it would look like this. Select from customers where city Berlin.
So select means she wants to see all the information from that customer's table.
Right.
And then the where part is where she narrows it down, filters it to just those in Berlin.
Precisely. The where clause is super important for getting specific results.
Now, what if Janet only needs certain information, like just the customer's name and email?
Well, she wouldn't use select then, right?
Because that grabs everything.
Instead, she can specify the exact column she wants.
Oh, okay, I see.
The statement would look like this. Select customer name, email from customers, where city, Berlin.
So she's being more selective, getting only what she needs.
Exactly. Makes the results much more useful.
That's cool. But what if she wants, let's say, a list of all the countries her customers are from? Wouldn't that give her a bunch of duplicates?
Good point. That's where the distinct clause comes in.
Distinct? What's that do?
It eliminates duplicate rows, so each country only shows up once.
Ah, okay, so it keeps things nice and clean.
Exactly. Makes the data easier to work with.
How would she add that to her query?
Easy. Just slip it in right after select. The statement would look like this. Select distinct country from customers.
Simple as that. So now she's got a unique list of countries. Very handy.
It's all about using the right tools for the job.
Okay, now let's say Janet needs to add a new customer to the database. What then?
That's where we move to DML, data manipulation language. Specifically, the insert statement.
Insert, okay.
Think of it like adding a new row to a spreadsheet. You're putting in fresh data.
So how would she add, let's say, Max Musterman to the database?
Okay, let's see. The statement would look something like this. Insert into customers. Customer name, contact last name, contact first name, phone, values. Max Musterman, Musterman, Max 12345678990.
Okay, so we tell it the table name, the columns we want to fill,
Yeah.
and then the actual values for each of those columns.
Exactly. And notice how the values are in single quotes. That's because they are strings. The number doesn't have quotes.
So you have to be careful about data types in SQL.
Absolutely. If you mess that up, the database might get confused and throw an error.
Okay, data types matter.
Got it.
Got it.
It's one of the fundamentals.
So let's say Max changes his phone number. How do we update that in the database?
For that, we use the update statement. It's like editing an existing cell in your spreadsheet.
All right, show me how that works.
It would look something like this.
Yeah.
update customer's set phone, 987-654-3210, where customer name Max Musterman.
So we tell it which table, which column to update, the new value, and then that where clause, again, to specify which record we're changing.
That where clause is crucial. Without it, we'd update everyone's phone number, and that would be a mess.
Yeah, no kidding. Always got to double check that where clause.
It's your safety net.
Okay, what if we need to completely remove a customer from the database?
Time for the delete statement. But be careful with this one. It permanently removes records.
I'm sensing a theme here. The where clause is super important.
You got it.
Yeah.
Especially with delete. You don't want to accidentally wipe out your entire database.
Okay, where clause equals safety. Duly noted. So how would we remove Max Musterman?
The statement would be delete from customers where customer name Max Musterman.
So we've got insert for adding, update for modifying, and delete for removing data.
The core of DML, data manipulation language.
You mentioned something about the difference between delete and truncate.
Ah, yes. Both remove data, but they work differently. Delete gets rid of specific rows based on a condition, like we did with Max. Truncate, on the other hand, just wipes out everything in a table. No conditions, no questions asked.
So if delete is like carefully removing certain books from a library.
Truncate is like bulldozing the entire building.
Wow. Okay, definitely use that one with caution.
It's more for completely clearing a table, not for selective removal.
Gotcha. Now let's talk about TCL, Transaction Control Language. You said it's all about data integrity. What does that mean exactly?
Imagine you're making a bank transfer. You're taking money out of one account and putting it into another.
Yeah.
Those two actions have to happen together, right? Or else you end up with some serious problems.
Yeah, money disappearing into thin air.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's where transactions come in. They group multiple SQL statements into a single unit of work. So either everything happens successfully or nothing happens at all.
It's like an all or nothing kind of deal.
Precisely. And it's super important for keeping your database consistent.
So if something goes wrong during the process, like, I don't know, a network error or something.
The whole thing gets rolled back, like hitting the undo button.
So it's like a safety net for your data.
You got it. Prevents those partial changes from messing everything up.
I like safety nets.
Me too. And the main TCL commands are commit and rollback.
So commit is like saying, okay, database, save all these changes I made.
Right. And rollback is like, nope, let's undo everything back to square one.
Makes sense. Safety first.
Data integrity is key.
Okay, we're down to the last sublanguage, DCL, data control language. This is all about security, right?
You bet. DCL controls who gets access to what in the database. Think about it.
Yeah.
You've got a team of people, but not everyone needs to be able to change customer data, for example.
So it's like having different levels of access, different permissions.
Exactly. DCL lets you create user accounts, give them specific privileges, and even take those privileges away if needed.
So it's like being the bouncer at the database club.
Huh, yeah, something like that. You control who gets in and what they can do.
The main commands here are grant and revoke.
Those are the big ones. Grant gives someone permission, like the ability to read data from a specific table, and revoke takes that permission away.
So you've got complete control over who can do what.
It's all about keeping that data safe and secure.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot here. We've seen how SQL can be used to get data, add data, change data, delete data, manage those all-or-nothing transactions, and even control who has access to what.
We've gone through the whole life cycle of data management with SQL,
It's amazing how much you can do with just a few lines of code.
and we've only just scratched the surface. SQL is a vast and powerful language, and there's always more to learn.
Okay, so we've really gotten into the nuts and bolts of SQL and mySQL.
The technical side of things.
But I'm curious, where does this all actually get used? Like, what are some real-world applications of SQL?
Oh man, SQL is everywhere. Seriously, any industry that uses data relies on SQL. Finance, healthcare, e-commerce, you name it.
Our sources say it's the standard language for these things called relational database management systems.
Those systems are handling huge amounts of data for all sorts of purposes.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, think about online shopping. Every time you browse products on Amazon, add stuff to your cart, or actually buy something.
SQL is working behind the scenes.
Totally. It's pulling up product info, managing inventory, processing your payment, even recommending stuff you might like based on what you've looked at before.
So it's personalizing our shopping experience.
Exactly. There's a lot more going on than you might realize.
I had no idea. So SQL is like the engine behind online retail.
That's a big part of it, yeah.
What about other areas?
Well, business intelligence and analytics is another big one. Companies use SQL to dig into their data, figure out trends, create reports.
So they can make smarter decisions.
Right. Things like targeted marketing campaigns, sales forecasting, understanding customer behavior, it all comes back to SQL.
So it's not just about crunching numbers, it's about getting insights from those numbers.
Exactly. And it's not just business either. Think about scientific research. They use SQL to manage experimental data, track patient records, even make those big discoveries.
Like in genetics, right? The Human Genome Project, things like that.
Exactly. Huge projects like that wouldn't be possible without SQL to organize and analyze all that data.
It seems like as we get into this whole big data and AI world, SQL is just becoming more and more important.
Absolutely. Machine learning algorithms need tons of data to work, and SQL is crucial for preparing that data, cleaning it up, making sure it's ready for analysis.
So we're talking everything from personalized recommendations to scientific breakthroughs, even the stuff that powers self-driving cars.
It all ties back to SQL in some way.
Wow, I'm convinced. SQL is pretty powerful stuff. So if our listener is thinking, hey, I want to learn this, where should they start?
Our source material has some good links to resources, websites, tutorials, online courses.
And you don't have to be a tech whiz to learn this stuff, right?
Not at all. Anyone who works with data or wants to work with data can benefit from learning SQL. It's a super valuable skill no matter what industry you're in.
So analysts, marketers, researchers, even entrepreneurs who just want to understand their own data better.
Absolutely. And the basics of SQL are actually pretty straightforward. With a little practice, anyone can start writing queries and uncovering those insights.
Great advice. So don't be afraid to jump in and experiment, right? Play around with the commands, see what you can discover.
Exactly. The more you use it, the more comfortable you'll get. You might even find out you've got a passion for data you never knew you had.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for our deep dive on SQL and mySQL.
We covered a lot.
We did. We started with the basics, explored those 5 sublanguages, looked at some real-world examples, and even touched on the impact of SQL in all sorts of fields.
It's been a great deep dive.
Absolutely. And for our listener, we hope this has been a helpful intro to the world of SQL. Remember, it's more than just a language. It's a key that unlocks a universe of information and insights.
So go explore, experiment, and discover the power of data.
Happy querying, everyone!